Woohoo! Hi, everyone. Broadcasting from Los Angeles or Hollywood, California over here. Anjali, where are you broadcasting from?
Studio City,
Yay!
California.
A few miles away across the freeway from me.
I know. Well, it feels like it sometimes.
Yay! Thanks for joining us this evening.
So fun.
Who else is here? Give us a wave.
Oh.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Michelle, founder of Root to Rise Yoga, and I have the honor of interviewing Anjali Deva, whom I met a few years ago at Lamaita Institute, where I was teaching yoga in North Hollywood, California, and she was practicing Ayurveda there, as well as, let me get this correctly, you were the creative co-director?
I think my title was, creative co-director. I was there from the start. It was just one of the people that helped get it off the ground. And I think it turned into creative co-director by the end of it.
Nice. Well, you wore many hats.
Yeah. It was a really special place and space. And we had such a great community. I miss it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful space.
Yeah.
So I'm here with Anjali tonight to ask her a few questions about Ayurveda. So let's give her a hand, everyone. Give her some love. So Anjali, thank you for offering us your time and your expertise.
Of course.
For those of us who don't know about Ayurveda, can you give us a brief explanation of what it is and how it would benefit anyone?
Yeah. It's okay. So Ayurveda is a traditional medical system from India. So it is a holistic mind-body integrative science. And because it's also holistic, we like to say that it's both an art and a science because it really looks at the individual's mind, body, and spirit in such a unique and individualized way. But some of the things that would sound familiar about Ayurveda are that we use herbs, we use dietary changes, we use lifestyle changes, like when you go to bed or when you wake up. And there's also some different like body work techniques and things that we can do in Ayurveda. But what's most important to know is that it's a very traditional medical system that's still practiced in India. Actually, in India, you can go to an Ayurvedic hospital and treat anything, really, from like anxiety to digestive disorders to cancer in the hospitals there. Here, we're a little bit more limited in our scope of practice. It's more like preventative medicine. It's not considered a legal medical practice here. So I work more like a practitioner or a counselor who helps kind of guide you in the right direction, giving information and education about this traditional system.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And how might it benefit somebody who doesn't know much about it yet? I mean, you talked about the huge spectrum of dis-eases that it can address.
Yeah. So what I love about Ayurveda is that it's really good at pulling out imbalances really early on. So one of the major things in Ayurveda is that your digestive health is the foundation for everything else. And we know now that the majority of the population, like over 50% of the US population, is diagnosed with IBS. So irritable bowel syndrome. So we know that the majority of people are having digestive discomfort, let alone whether that's like a disorder or you just get an upset stomach every once in a while. But that is a warning signal that something is going on in your body and it's something to pay attention to. And Ayurveda would say that if we can correct that, then it's like preventative medicine, and down the line, you won't end up with a disease. So Ayurveda is good, I would say, for the majority of people because we get to use it as preventative medicine for little things that you might start to notice are off, or just a little bit, like you said, dis-ease, might be causing some dis-ease in your system. So I think for the majority of people making dietary changes to eat more locally, more seasonally, more Ayurvedically. And what that would mean is in Ayurveda, there's something called doshas, which are like constitutions or energies. And just to be really simple about it for a moment, there are three, and you could think about it like air, fire, and earth. And based on what your individual constitution is made up of, you would need different diets and herbs to bring that into balance. So that might change with the season, that might change with the weather outside, that might change with stress in your life, that might change with your age. So Ayurveda gives you kind of like a map or a tracking system to help you figure out where that imbalance is starting and how to work with it. And usually that's with digestive health, although it could be other things like anxiety.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the doshas, I am going to ask you more about that in just a little bit.
Of course.
But before we do, I would love for you to tell us more about yourself and what got you into Ayurveda. When did you start and how practicing it for your own health?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I grew up with Ayurveda. My dad is an Ayurvedic doctor. He's been practicing for 25 years, let's say. And my parents were divorced, so I grew up mostly with my mother, who was not really practicing Ayurveda in the sense that she studied it as a science, but all of the way that our food was cooked, or like if I had a cut, she would put turmeric on it, or whenever my stomach hurt, she'd give me ginger tea. So there was a lot of Ayurveda infused in my household. And I grew up practicing yoga and meditation since I was 5 years old. So I knew about it, but I hadn't quite studied it or really, like, I didn't dive into it very deeply until 10 years ago. I was in college. I was really struggling with anxiety and skin issues. Actually, my whole face was basically covered in eczema. And I was having some digestive and anxiety stuff going on. So I asked my dad if he would help me. And being the wise man that he is, instead of helping me, he handed me a book. And it was a book on Ayurveda. And, reading it, I just started to understand like the way in which I was living my life, which was like, eating unhealthily, drinking a fair amount, really stressed, unsure about what I was doing with my life path, just sort of in a high stress response for a long time. I realized that I needed to change my life. So I dropped out of college and I enrolled in an Ayurvedic school here in Los Angeles. I guess that was 9 or 10 years ago now, probably 9 years ago. So I studied for a few years through that school. And then I went to India and actually like interned with a doctor and did a detox there. And then since then, I've just been on this journey of studying it personally with teachers, with my dad, and really just trying to embody and live it, because I think without getting too esoteric, I think it's a certain type of wisdom that we all hold within us. And it's about how we are able to listen and be guided to unlock some of that.
I love how empowering that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really innate wisdom that we all have a wisdom voice. So, in Ayurveda, we talk a lot about one of the reasons that we end up with disease is something called pragnya aparad, which is it's very harsh, but a crime against your own wisdom. So it could be something as simple as like, oh, I know I shouldn't have pizza for dinner tonight, but I'm going to do it anyway.
A crime against your own wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful saying. Because how many times do we say, I know I shouldn't, but oops. I think the internet connection. Did you say something? The internet connection just kind of stalled.
Yeah, I was just laughing.
Oh. So that brings us into your practice then. So when did you start practicing, your services?
Yeah, I started practicing 6 years ago. I had just gotten back from doing a panchakarma, which is a detox in India. And I was like building websites to make money and kind of just like hustling. And I met Omid, who started Lameda, Dr. Naeem, who's an integrative psychiatrist. And he was looking for an assistant who could also maybe coach his clients on diet and lifestyle.
Hmm.
his patients on diet and lifestyle. And so I started working with him as his assistant, and he started referring clients to me. And within a year, my practice was so busy that I actually had to stop assisting for him and was primarily working with his patients on helping them build dietary and lifestyle structures and routines so that they were more able to get off of antidepressants.
Wow, that's amazing. Within a year, that says a lot. How much you were giving service and how much it was needed and appreciated, and that's
Yeah,
cool.
I think it's a big missing link for a lot of us. I mean, 1 in 5 people, something like that, is on an antidepressant currently.
Hmm.
And, so much of that now we know has to do with your gut microbiome and the ways in which, like, if we aren't eating well or not digesting well, that's going to have an effect on your mental health,
Hmm.
um, especially with anxiety and depression diagnoses. So it's been really fascinating to work with people, just, like really simply just changing your diet, maybe going to bed a little bit earlier, getting on some routines, and seeing how much of a profound effect that can have on your health.
Wow, that's such an empowering thing to know, and a message to, like, something that we do routinely is feed our bodies with food, and just, you
Yeah.
know, certain changes can affect depression. And wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's all of these studies now about circadian rhythm, which is basically like your sleep wake cycle and how that affects your microbiome and your body's processing. And it's pretty amazing that like even just an hour change in your sleep wake cycle can have a huge impact on your microbiome.
Hmm.
So like the way that you digest has to do with what time you're going to bed, to oversimplify that.
Right, right.
And that's not often a connection that we make.
Yeah, yeah. So, bringing us to kind of the highlight of what we're all going through, the pandemic and the stress of the mental stress of it, the physical stress, and we're, I believe, more concerned about taking care of our health, preventative care. Can you share some tips, some practical ways that any of us, even who are new to Ayurveda,
Yeah.
can help to stay healthy in mind, body, spirits
Mhm.
during these?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so for anybody across the board, it is helpful to have a regular bedtime and wake up time. Ayurveda would say that going to bed around 10 o'clock and waking up around 5 would be ideal. So as close as you can get to that. So let's say you're going to bed at 12 and waking up at 8 right now. Maybe you want to start moving that back to 11:30. So that's a possibility. The other thing is when you wake up in the morning after you brush your teeth, have a cup of hot water. That gets your digestive system moving. And what I would say across the board for everybody is try to eat seasonal, try to eat local, try to eat organic vegetables. It's like good for pretty much everybody. But then Ayurveda takes that one step further, and we have the doshas. So we can think about the doshas as 3 different ways that we might have a stress response during this time. So somebody who is having what we would call vata imbalance, which would mean you have too much air in your system, too much wind, you'll start to notice that you get this really effervescent, anxious, restless, overwhelmed kind of energy. And for that, I would really recommend something called Abhyanga, which is very simply just applying warm oil to your body. So, sesame oil, a body oil that's lavender infused, even olive oil. You can heat it
Coconut?
up a little bit. Coconut would be amazing, especially as it gets hotter. Coconut's a really good oil for that
Hmm.
because it's considered cooling compared to the other oils. So it's really
Oh,
it's really nourishing for your body and good for the summertime. So what you can do is heat up a little bit of oil. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but apply it to your body before you take a shower. And what that does is it really settles the nervous system. So when you have this anxious, effervescent energy, you kind of want to contain it. You want to bring it down. You want to give it more sensations of grounding.
hmm.
So that, or like a warm shower before bed, using a weighted blanket, having more soups and stews and really easily digestible warm foods. So if you have that kind of anxious, frenetic, overwhelmed sensation, that would be a good thing to do. If you have a little bit more of the secondary one called pitta, which is fire, and I think about that more like a fight response. If you're noticing that you're getting a little bit more irritated, a little bit more impatient, a little bit more judgmental, then that would be a time to consider eating more dark leafy greens because those are considered cooling. Cucumbers would be a really good thing to bring into your diet.
Can I ask for the dark leafy greens cooked or raw?
Cooked would be ideal just because it makes it a little bit easier on your digestive system. But if you have strong digestion and you feel pretty good in that area of your life, then you can definitely have them raw in a salad. And drinking cucumber water to help kind of cool and pacify the body. But the main thing for pittas is that they push until they burn out. So where vata, the first one, really needs routine and grounding, pitta needs moderation. It needs to slow down and kind of like not go to 100%. Like give yourself a break, go for a walk, kind of tone it down a little bit before you push yourself all the way into burnout.
Mm.
And then kapha, which is earth and water, it's kind of this like muddy, heavy energy. When we have too much of that in our system, we feel really lethargic, we feel really shut down, we feel kind of frozen. And that's really an opportunity to invite in some discipline in your life. So that means waking up a little bit earlier, not snacking all day, trying to stay away from the sweet snacks, but maybe having more dark leafy greens that could be uncooked, that would be okay. Having more vegetables, less grain, making sure that you're staying well hydrated. And the most important thing for kapha right now is movement. They kind of just want to like sink into the couch and stay there. And that can not be so great for kapha. It makes you more heavy, more lethargic, more imbalanced. So using a little bit of that discipline and that motivation to get moving would be really helpful. So there's sort of the like basics for everybody, and then a little bit based kind of on like what your stress response is a way to think about it, because we're all going to react differently, right? Like if the tiger is coming at me, some people are going to run, some people are going to try to fight the tiger, some are going to play dead. We all are going to have different stress responses, so we have to treat them differently.
Wow, that's so much great information. Thank you. I can fit into a few of those categories.
I think we all can. I'm sure we're all vacillating through all three.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say vacillating, like within a day, within years, or
Yeah.
moment.
All of that, we're super dynamic and our doshas are constantly changing, and different times of the day are governed by different doshas. So vata, which tends to have that effervescent energy, like if at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning you're waking up, that's a vata imbalance, because that vata governs 2 to 5 a.m. and p.m. Pitta's 10 to 6. So I noticed Pitta's get this like second wind at 10 o'clock where they want to like organize everything at 10 p.m. And Kappas like want to sleep in until 10 because it's 6 to 10 in the morning. So they get real lethargic.
Wow. Where can we learn more about doshas and understand our own?
Yeah, there's a wonderful company called Banyan Botanicals. They are an Ayurvedic herbal company, but they have a lot of resources on their website that are free. You can take a dosha test. You can learn about it there. If you go on Amazon and Google Ayurveda books, there's lots of different like beginners workbooks to kind of like read about it, work through. And then my hope is to have more classes available throughout the end of the year. So staying in touch with me through Instagram or my newsletter.
Well, you also, what are the kinds of services that you provide as an Ayurvedic practitioner?
Yeah, so I do consultations, and that looks different for everybody, but usually it's an hour and a half. And we spend that time talking about your history, your digestive health, your physical health, your mental, emotional health, and spiritual health. And based on that, we'll come up with a plan of changes that you're going to make in your life and things that we will implement down the line. And some people I see weekly. It's kind of like counseling. We change things a lot. For some people, I see them once a month. For some people, I see them once every 6 months. They're healthy and they just want a little bit more guidance. So it sort of depends on what kind of imbalance is going on in your life, but it's a really interesting way to learn more about your constitution.
Hmm. Wonderful. So how can anyone contact you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so you can book a consultation through my website, which is rootedrasa.com. I think it's also on my Instagram, like Linktree. Or you can email me or Instagram message me. I'm hopefully easy to contact.
And I believe you guys can see her Instagram handle if you're not already
Yeah,
following her.
it's just my first name at Anjali, Anjali. And my website is rooted, ROOTED, Rasa.com.
I love the coincidence, not coincidence, between our two business names.
I know. The double R's.
Yeah, the root.
And that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, a double R. Yeah. I don't believe in coincidences. I think there's something more important going on.
Absolutely.
So I did promise some time within this half hour for anyone to ask any questions.
Yeah, I would love that.
So are you able to see what people are posting here as well?
I am. I haven't seen any questions yet, but
okay. I'm going to scroll down. I'm fairly new. This is like the second time doing this simultaneous broadcasting. So let's see. Who's joining us tonight? Does anyone have any questions for Anjali?
Just smiley faces.
You've got some fans there.
Yeah, I think Ayurveda is a really important practice for these times, especially as we sort of slow down and go inward, and it's very interrelated with yoga and meditation. They're all sister sciences. Same with astrology, same with something called Vastu, which is, how you align your, thanks, Kyle. That's so sweet. I love Kyle. How you align your home and your space with the directions. And, it's a very interesting web of knowledge when you start to look at the Vedas and how they interrelate in so many different ways. And, my practice of yoga and meditation is only deepened through Ayurveda.
You just read my mind because I was going to ask you how it is complemented with yoga or how they complement each other.
Yeah. It's so funny because here in the West, typically you practice yoga and then like something happens where either you hurt yourself or you learn about Ayurveda at a teacher training and then you find out about Ayurveda. And, I think historically, maybe it's a romanticized view, but historically you would see a person who was an Ayurvedic practitioner and a yoga therapist, and you would, you would get more information about how to care for your body through Ayurveda before you started practicing the spiritual path of yoga, right? And asana is only one form of that. So, Ayurveda would get your body right so that you could then practice yoga and really move on to more of those enlightened practices. So they're very, and now you can see in India, like a yoga therapist who would make recommendations that are dietary changes, lifestyle changes, and give you an asana practice. And like that kind of well-rounded approach is so fascinating to have somebody kind of look at you through, I'm going to geek out for a second, but like through the koshas, through all 5 layers of your being, and look at your food body and your breath body and your mind body and, your spiritual body and how all of those are connected and what you can do on this level to change all of that. It's fascinating.
That is fascinating. Keep geeking out.
And like how your food and your mantra could, together create a doshic change within you, right? Like to chant in a certain way is going to affect your doshas. To practice asana in a certain way is going to affect your doshas. How you sit for meditation, your focus in meditation, all of that is impacted by your doshas, right? If I give a vata like something that's super beautiful and colorful in a visualization, it might actually pull them too far out. Or, if a kapha is just doing repetition, it might not be engaging enough. So it's really interesting to look at that intersection And my dad created a field of practitioner called an Ayurvedic yoga therapist. So you can be a yoga therapist who uses Ayurveda to diagnose versus a Western modality. And it's really beautiful to see that kind of interconnection and see them practice together in this way.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a whole world out there.
So do you practice that?
I do. I do. Lately, the past few years, my practice has really gone more into Buddhism and like concentration and just sort of like understanding the mind. But my asana practice, it is through yoga therapy.
I love the idea of utilizing a meditation practice that is specific for your dosha.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been in teaching yoga, exploring or sharing various ways of meditating. So,
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And I think also, even if you're not addressing somebody's doshas, you could change it for the season, right? Like our focus of attention during Pitta summer season would be very different, maybe, than, when it's like Kapha and you actually need to increase fire to get you going because it's winter and you want to start creating. In summertime, it's maybe more about starting to cool down a little bit and settle into the peak of the year, right? We see that kind of cycle come in. And so, yeah, even just in how you teach your classes or what kind of themes you bring up, like it's interesting to play in that realm of the doshas because they govern the seasons, and that's an easy way in.
So I don't want to ignore somebody did ask you a question here.
Yeah, that's my good friend Selena. I think she asked about cleansing.
Any suggestions on spring cleansing that's gentle during this crazy time? Great question.
Yeah. For most people right now, it feels like khichdi, which is, an Ayurvedic dish of rice, lentils, and spices with whatever vegetables you want. Doing that with a tea, cumin, coriander, fennel, CCF tea. And you can order both of those things from Banyan Botanicals. There's like spice mixes where you can get it all pre-made. But doing 3 days of khichdi with CCF tea and maybe some triphala, which helps with constipation.
Triphala.
Triphala is an Ayurvedic herb. It has 3 fruits in it. Triphala means the 3 fruits. One of them is amalaki, which is high in vitamin C. It's an Indian gooseberry. Haritaki, which strengthens the colon, and then bibitaki, which is another herb that helps with kapha. And all 3 of those work like just a very mild digestive support that can help you be more regular with bowel movements. So if you need a little support in detoxing, khichdi, CCFT, triphala, or if it's all new to you, maybe just a day of only eating vegetables and rice, seeing how that goes.
I love how practical it sounds and doable.
Yeah, I think it's just, so many of us don't know that that's out there. I think we would all really love it if we knew it was available, but it's not the mainstream information that we get.
Mm-hmm.
So, we immediately think when we have a digestive issue, we have to like go see a doctor and take Miralax and get an endoscopy and do all kinds of crazy things. But sometimes just some gentle changes are extremely effective. I've seen some crazy stuff.
You hear that, guys? Spread the word. I know many of you already know Anjali and Ayurveda. Any other questions from those of you watching?
It seems like it's morning in India, so we've got a lot of people tuning in.
Oh.
Yeah, it's probably, I forget if it's 12 or 13 hours right now. The time difference.
Well, then my last question for you is, especially during this time, do you have any words of inspiration or encouragement that you'd like to share?
Yeah. This one's from one of my teachers, Claudia Welch. When life is complicated, eat simple. I see everybody like making these amazing meals and pizzas and all kinds of things. Like just eat some vegetables, take it easy.
Thank you.
Just
Good thing I'm a simple
simplify.
cook anyway.
Simplify, simplify, simplify. Your digestive fire is needing to digest all of your emotions, all of your thoughts, this big experience, uncertainty, unknown, and whether you are dealing with it well, not well, up, down, we're all riding waves of emotions. So your system, whether you know it or not, is under a lot of stress and needs to be treated in a really gentle, simple way.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes, maybe especially as pitas or semi-pitas.
Yeah, me too.
That.
Right? I'm like, what do you mean my whole life isn't figured out already?
Well, thank you so much, Anjali.
No
Thank you for sharing
problem.
your time
Thank you.
and your wisdom.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate any opportunity to share and talk about Ayurveda. I think it's incredibly important.
Again, everyone, you can follow her on Instagram at Anjali, Anjali. Did you say pizza?
Of course I did. Of course I said pizza. Any lecture I give, any talk I do, there's always a mention of pizza.
You're welcome, Jaren. And her website is
rootedrasa.com.
wonderful.